ever since I got to cast, so I'm going to take us away nice and quickly into the top left-hand side of Death Aura, a winner of the Oceanic region from Legacy Gaming. This is Probe.
And in the bottom right side of Death Aura, we're looking at the main base of the Korean Zerg, the two-time Intel Extreme Masters Katowice champion. It is Rogue. Imagine if he wins it again. Sorry, Waddy, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, what a year he's had, right? You know, he's absolutely delivered. Time and time again already in 2020, when we weren't even talking about him in the first couple months of the year until Katowice.
Yeah, I remember when we went into Katowice, I don't know if it was Special or somebody else who just kept predicting Rogue to win the entire thing. And I was like, I'm really not getting Rogue vibes this year. But yeah, then obviously the tournament plays out one way or the other. And I do really would have loved to see that grand finals between Rogue and Serral, right? Because I think they had such an iconic match back then at BlizzCon. But then Zest and his adept said, nope, printed a whole bunch of adepts, and the rest is history.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a sad ending for Serral back in Katowice. Of course, Serral playing tomorrow in this. That's going to be a hell of a group. But here in Group C, everything's standard to get us started. Roddy, what do you think Probe pulls out in this series? Is there anything in particular you're expecting from him?
I'm actually expecting quite a bit of Skytoss as well. Yesterday we saw a lot of Void Race carriers, a couple of Phoenix builds as well, or at least one of them. And I know that Probe has never been a stranger to the late game Protoss when it comes down to maybe even having a mothership and a whole bunch of carriers. I don't know if he's willing to play those kinds of styles against Rogue as well, but yeah, we'll see. I'm mostly curious about the early mid game, right? Like, what kind of ways is Probe going to look for to keep Rogue in check? If Rogue is not making Probe's life easy by building a lot of units, then obviously the ball is in Probe's corner to deal some economic damage, and I'm really curious to see how he plans on doing that.
Well, that Stargate going down to start, obviously, that's just the way to play PvZ right now. The Void Ray has actually given a bit more life to that Stargate, and we have seen, like you said, so many Void Rays, but it's really been a variance too. It's not just been like everyone's building Void Rays. Some people go no Void Ray. We've seen that fair share of just one Void Ray to take the role of the Phoenix as well. I like it. It just gives you that little bit of safety, and especially against somebody like Rogue, I feel like that's such an important feature to have, right? That ability to be like, right, I've got a Void Ray that helps me out against so many of those early game roach pushes, which Rogue is always happy to throw in.
I always have a little heart attack, a little tiny panic moment when my screen freezes. I'm like, is it me? And it's like almost never me. Like, I can't even remember the last time it was me, but I don't know, that just makes you feel like you did something embarrassing at like elementary school and everybody's looking at you and they're like, it was Kevin. I'm like, no, it wasn't me, you know. But fortunately, guys, we just had a little lag spike. One of our Ukrainian casters is lagging. The game will go on. I'm with you. I love the Void Race. I'm happy to see what they've done with the unit. It just became a bit more fun. And it's giving us some variety in the Stargate play as well, because some people, they don't like to see multiple Stargate games in a row, but I don't really see it like that. That's just one of the tech buildings, but there are so many different ways. Like, if every single game is 2 Void Ray into, you know, nothing, or 1 Void Ray into 2 Oracles, then of course that becomes boring. But I feel like we see so many different follow-ups from the Stargate Void Ray opening that it's still pretty interesting to see where players take the build.
And that's why it's almost kind of coming back to life, because that extra little bit of opportunity with a Void Ray and different ways to change it up, it keeps that variety in it. And that just makes the overall style of Stargate that little bit better as well, as we do see 1 Void Ray straight to the Oracle. So this is one of the more kind of standard setups where it kind of looks like it used to. Basically, you trade out a Void Ray instead of a Phoenix, and that Void Ray is great, can shut down the Overlords as usual. And again, like I was saying earlier, that added extra defense early. And Rogue, well, he gets Overlord speed. He just lost his 1 Overlord on this top side of the map. He has another one in the center. He really just wants to know what's going on behind this Stargate, because we have seen some trickier plays, such as Twilight Council and Resonating Glaives after this. So Rogue just wants to know exactly what's going on. It's actually a very responsible Rogue and a very like non-gambly Rogue who just says, as long as I know what's up, I'm pretty confident going into a longer game.
Yep. And in a way, Probe is also playing very passive, right? Like, if I would feel that I'm the better player in a Protoss vs Zerg matchup, I think that the opening that Probe is going for makes perfect sense. The Void Ray is ultra safe. Now, I don't know if that's the approach that Probe is having here, but maybe he's just going for the build that he's been having some success with. He's taking a lot of damage on his Oracle already. Jeez Louise, Waddy. Don't know if I like that for only 2 drones.
Yeah, for 2 drones, it's not that great because now the Oracle's really limited. It's not like you've got a second one that can really go back in. So this Oracle probably going to play a much more passive role now. Maybe a Stasis Ward or 2 here or there. Maybe some very passive Revelations. Don't expect to see too much else from it. The Void Ray tried to get a bit of action as well, but didn't really succeed in doing anything. And Rogue's just started a missile upgrade, that lair. Obviously, one of the biggest things we've seen from the Zerg lately is that switch into more Lurk-based styles. So with that missile upgrade already on the way, that really says we've got some potential to go into Hydras off that lair, and then obviously down the line, Lurkers maybe a play point as well.
You know what I love about StarCraft is that for the longest time we saw an insane amount of Banelings in this matchup as well, and a lot of people like, you know what the problem with this game is? It's the Baneling. It's just too cheap, you know. Then eventually the Baneling gets patched a little bit, and it's still pretty good. But all of a sudden the Zergs are like, you know what? Lurkers are pretty sick against Protoss as well. And then people come in my stream and like, you know what the problem is? The Lurkers, man. The Lurkers are just like way too good. And I'm like, well, you know, they gotta build something, guys. Eventually the Zergs gotta win a couple games as well.
I know. It's funny though, because everyone was like, this is not the fix for the Baneling. And then the next day, no one played Banelings anymore. Everyone was just using Lurkers every single game. I was like, well, guys, that was maybe the fix for the Baneling for now. Yeah. But you're right. Everyone does seem to think the Lurk is the issue. That's a Dropper Lord coming in from Rogue, by the way. Not sure what the overall plan is. I mean, with the position of it, it kind of feels like it wants to lift up maybe like even Queens to go across the map, but it is just going to be Lings. It's just a far off drop, I guess, because he has no Overlords across the map.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. You don't often see a Zerg player picking up 8 Zerglings on their side of the map. Probe is moving out, but it's kind of a weird moment to move out if you ask me why. Because Blink is halfway done, +1 isn't done just yet. But maybe he's just looking to get a cancel on this hatchery. I don't think we have a lot of Ravagers. No, a single Ravager. Can we get a couple of force fields? Can Probe get a cancel on this hatchery?
Yeah, it's scary, right? And now the extra Ravagers morphing in. He is still warping in 6 more Stalkers, so he obviously wants to keep the pressure up over here. And then, I mean, he's still looking for a later game, though, like a Robo on the way up, those upgrades finishing.
I'm afraid that this link drop is actually really going to mess him up. If he just uses his warp-ins on the other side of the map, which he has been doing before, like you need a little bit of luck in moments like this as a Protoss, that you are able to just warp in 2 levels and then adapt, and then you're fine. Force fields do go down, a couple of these Ravagers get trapped, and this is honestly not a very bad fight for Probe at all, who didn't even use his Stargate units in this exchange. Can we warp in a couple of units in the main base? It seems like the answer is yes, so I think Probe got a little bit fortunate there.
Yep, he's going to be able to deal with that pretty well, but now those things go to the natural, and Probe's still trying to fight over here, so this way he could start to take a lot of Probe damage. The Lings actually run to the Stalkers. They maybe could have held position in the mineral line instead. The big thing is I think Probe's turning around, and mostly because he has to deal with this, and he's just not being able to get anything else done with this army, and now he's stuck on just kind of mass blink Stalker. Yeah, there's a Robo Bay on the way up, but, you know, he's not added anything else on up until now, so his future tech is kind of delayed from where it should be. And that means Rogue's going to hit Lurkers before there's like a Colossus or anything on the map, or a Disruptor. Anything, really. Yep.
Still has that Dropper Lord as well. I gotta say, that's a really lovely move by Rogue. We don't see that very often. A Zerg player just casually picking up 8 Zerglings at home and flying it all the way to the other side of the map. But these Protoss armies, they shine when you're really paying attention. When you're Blink Stalker microing every Stalker that you have. When you're dropping the force fields correctly. You can't be doing that if you're also trying to save a couple probes at home against just 8 random Zerglings that suddenly show up in your main. And that just really takes all the juice out of the attack of Probe. Very well done by Rogue.
Another drop coming in. I like it. Just keeping the action up. And he's just never letting Probe do anything on the map. And of course, this buys him all the time in the world for those Lurk upgrades, which is going to be fantastic. Looks really good for Rogue right now, just in terms of where it's headed. You know, Probe's starting to fall apart. You can see them 4 pylons building, currently supply block. And those are the things which you can't really allow to happen when you're trying to take on a Titan of the scene like Rogue.
No, especially not if you really had a proper game plan in mind, right? Where you're pressuring, where you're trading, and then you're the one actually hitting your transitions behind all of that a bit quicker. Maybe hope that the Zerg gets stuck on roaches while you're getting your double Robo setup rolling. All of a sudden, it's Rogue who's the one who's keeping Probe busy while he's hitting his transitions. when you need to. 6 Hydras are out, 6 Lurkers already out as well. We can see Adaptive Talents is being researched, and Rogue's army isn't just bigger, Waddy, it's also a lot better.
Yep. As soon as these Lurkers get into a fight against Stalkers, it's not even fair. Like, Stalkers are just not the unit you really want here against Lurkers. They get shredded. So here we go. Rogue's just going to run up. He doesn't even have that Adaptive Talents yet, so it is a slow burrow, and that's the only reason this fight goes somewhat decently for Probe. He even ends up still losing a couple sentries, though. On the plus side, he is defending the 4th base all right, so he might be able to keep that alive, but it's as Rogue gets up to a 5th very comfortably. Run by? Don't think so, says Rogue. He's already over here, and yeah, you lose a queen, but that's like 7 zealots to kill a queen. It's not the best trade.
Well, if any Rogue fans out there were worried that this was potentially not going to be a great Rogue that was going to show up today, I don't think you have much to worry about, Waddy. After these first 10 minutes, I'm very impressed by the way that Rogue is playing. Of course, he's a big favorite coming into this, but that's never a guarantee in StarCraft. But Rogue is just playing really awesome StarCraft here, and he's kind of dismantling Probe over here.
Gets the first Colossus as well. We're still just stuck on like a Stalker-based army. I mean, there's another Colossus showing up, but Adaptive Talents is now done. So these Lurkers are going to burrow up way faster. That's going to be a huge deal in these fights. And Rogue is just bullying his way into that scary position on Death Aura. Where Death Aura is this great defensive 4-base map, but if Lurkers get into one of those choke points that are meant to be held defensively, you can't break them. It's super expensive to break that position, and that's really scary. Now, Rogue backs off for the moment, but he's got an extra game plan on the way. Vipers are already on the way up, even more Lurkers, and Rogue just keeps churning out all the stuff that's just going to make this game better and better for him as the time, as the clock ticks along.
Yep. It's really interesting that Rogue took this base at 3 o'clock as his 5th. You don't see that very often, and at one point it almost felt a bit disrespectful because there was entire Protoss army on the left side, but now that I look at it, it actually kind of makes sense, and maybe it is a bit easy to hold. Zealots are going to try to run into these spines. The armies are getting close to each other, and Rogue did make a little mistake there, as I believe he ran away a bit too far from his Lurkers. Waddy, why is Probe still on single robo? I'm so shocked by this. I guess the answer is because he wants to go Fleet Beacon and double Stargate behind all of this, but I really would have loved to see a double robo. I still love Disruptors against these kinds of armies.
Yeah, I actually thought he was going to go Disruptors kind of when we saw that robo bay going down so late. He's going to lose another Colossus. This is just, you can't afford this when you're on a single robo. The build time of these units is too long. He's never had an armory with more than 2 splash damage units in it. It's really crazy. Well, this is nice. Some DTs at least finding some Ravagers, so they're going to shut this down. But, I mean, Rogue wants to trade these out anyway. He wants even more Lurkers in his army. I'm not sure that Rogue's going to let this game go long enough for the Stargates to really come online in any meaningful fashion.
No. I mean, he's been on 81 probes for quite some time. That's cool. And all Rogue is playing with a relatively low draw count as he does get the abduct on one of the Colossi. The thing is, Rogue is just not losing any units that are really expensive. So who truly cares that he's sitting at 69 drones? He's got a massive army, he's got a powerful army, and he's been controlling the key units very well.
I think the big thing as well is that Probe just still has all the Stalkers. It's not like he's ever really traded those out. So to me, that's just a meaningless kind of part of his army. Like, it just doesn't do anything as Rogue walks into the natural.
Oh, the Lurker then is taking a lot of damage at home as one more Colossus does get abducted. I would have loved to see him kill that Lurker then. That would have potentially bought him a lot of time. Like, Rogue is taking some serious economic losses at home. The big question is, though, can Probe clean up this army? If he cleans up this army, Waddy, then we've got one hell of a game on our hands.
Yeah, if he cleans it up, I'm still a little bit doubtful. I don't like what Probe has to fight that. But yeah, he gets the Lurker den. There's just so many Hydras on the way from Rogue, so it feels like there will be something of an answer to those carriers. Good micro so far. That little squad of Lurkers on the right side will get taken down. It's still the major set of Lurkers up here. That's the problem, and that's a Disruptor that gets abducted straight away. Here we go from all angles. Probe comes in. The carriers join the fight as well. Hydras are here to fight them off, and those Lurkers are going to stand strong. The Stalkers are just not good enough in this scenario. The carriers are gone, and you're just never going to get up to that scary, scary Sky Toss number.
Nope, all the Lurkers will survive. GG gets called. Rogue takes game 1 in a really interesting manner, actually, because, he was the one being down economically, so to speak, but obviously it's not that big of a deal if you're already maxed out, and he was even sitting on a tiny bank, so it wasn't that he couldn't replace the units that he lost, but he just really put a lot of emphasis on getting the scariest Zerg army for that phase in the game, and he controlled it really well. I gotta say, Waddy, during that final engagement, when he lost those 4 Lurkers on the low ground, for 0.1 second, I was actually hopeful. I was like, imagine if the Purification Nova blows up 4 or 5 units, the carriers get their interceptors out, gateway units come in from 3 different angles. if Probe would have cleaned it up, he would have actually been in a really good spot because he had 81 probes, and obviously he took out the lurk and then on the other side of the map. But yeah, in the end, that fight wasn't nearly as close as I thought it possibly could have been.
No, I'm absolutely with you. At the end of the day, I think this is really it was a game that Rogue had planned out from start to finish, and he really kept that plan strong. And you know, he never made a move that was too committed before he was ready to really end the game, right? And yeah, when he went to end the game, he took some damage at home, but he knew his army was so good, he could just go across the map. And yeah, you lose the lurk, and then you lose some drones. But I don't think Rogue ever believed he was going to lose that army. And I gotta be honest, Roddy, I didn't see Pro clean it up either. I did for that moment when those few lurkers went down. I was like, is Rogue losing out? But then I saw there's still like 12 lurks on the high ground. I'm like, well... Yeah, I mean, you're right. If the disruptor shot goes off, the carriers get a bit more of a cleanup initially, but Rogue just wasn't letting that happen in the slightest. The abducts were on point, and we go into a second map on Eternal Empire, which is also another of these kind of let's take 4 bases and macro kind of maps.
Yeah, like in a way, it's perhaps predictable if Probe does some crazy gateway all in, and if it then falls flat on its face, we're all like, wow, why did he do that? And obviously, Rogue is expecting him to all in because he's not as good. So I didn't hate the macro approach in game 1. It just didn't really work out, and definitely not a fan of the Colossi. Like, I don't hate Colossus against Zerg, but these Colossus really had 0 impact on this game, I felt like. All of them just got abducted, they shot at roaches a couple of times, and not a single moment where we're like, whoa, the Colossus are doing work. No, the Colossus did nothing other than just being targets for the Vipers.
You're so right? How many times did we see like one Colossus just die? He never got to a scary Colossus number was the issue. Absolutely part of the problem as we start off here in the top right side of the map. Our blue Zerg player from Jin Air Green Wings. This is Rogue.
He's making Calaris look so smart over here. Oh, I'm already pissed off with today. In the bottom left side, we look at the main base of the champ of Oceania for the first time in 2018. As Wardy mentioned, it is Probe.
I'm not sure what Probe will go for this game. Do you think he goes Stargate again? I feel like if he does, he kind of has to change it up a bit instead of just trying to take that third base off the back of not doing anything else.
Yeah, I have the feeling that he probably will, just because he seems to be a fan of it, just like Stats was yesterday. Oh, hello, Wardy.
Okay.
Wow, how did we not pay attention to this? High ground pile. High ground pile, and Probe is going to get real fancy over here. But that Overlord is actually going to get the perfect scout immediately for Rogue. But I like it, Wardy. Why not get a little crazy against one of the all-time greats of StarCraft 2?
Definitely one way to switch it up, that's for sure. Well, this Overlord gets to see the pylon like you mentioned. That gives Rogue the chance to already pull a drone over here. I think Probe's in a bit of trouble, right? Because now Rogue can really decide how he wants to approach this. He can go straight into a Roach Roaring aggressively against this if he'd like to. And just having that heads up and not kind of messing around as much early on, I think that's really, really good for him.
Yeah, well, if that pylon just goes up on the high ground immediately, like I feel like for a split second, Rogue could have pulled some workers, but he didn't want to do it. Obviously, by the time that the cannon goes up, you don't want to pull drones against this anymore. So Rogue is just going to try to defend with spines. Probe does get the good scout on that as well. Oh, I love these kinds of games, Waddy. They're so wild. Robo goes on the low ground. I don't know, man. I kind of believe. I feel like we're going to see something very weird, and we're going to see these Immortals shine and get a ridiculous amount of kills.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how exactly Rogue continues. The Ling speed and Lings to kind of fight this is always scary because there's not ever any reliable damage onto the Immortals, I feel like, apart from the Spines and the Queens. The Lings are just kind of buffer units, so very interested to see the late game plan. There's a couple of Spines already moving forward, so he's looking to get rid of this high ground pylon, get rid of high ground vision already.
Yeah.
The Lings are looping around the back, almost as though they want to maybe try and fight some stuff here, see if there's an opportunity, but there is not. The cannons cover the Robo, so Probe covering himself well so far. And I mean, in fairness, this Robo has gotten up very cleanly. Not much issue there at all.
Nope. Obviously, that one cannon is going to be in a bit of danger. Rogue is actually just going to make a few more drones. He feels like that's what he really needs. These cannons are going to get closer and closer. It's going to be an observer first. So I guess Probe really wants to keep that cannon alive. Wants to make sure that creep doesn't allow these spine crawlers to walk forward and just take out those cannons. This is gonna get wild. The Lynx, by the way, were on their way to the other side of the map, but then Probe already walked in a safety cannon on this ramp in his main base, so that's why the Lynx turned around again.
Yeah, the only thing I do worry about is that Rogue just has 2 bases very easily from the start, so you can get a lot of link production up. And with a lot of link production, I do think he's got that real opportunity just to flood in and like fully surround everything here. Maybe before there's even a prism out or so. Let's see what he decides to do as this Immortal comes through. A few queens to the front to try and fight this.
Yeah, Rogue is gonna have a lot of link production, and he's gonna have non-stop production of queens most likely. But this is still risky, right? We've seen this go wrong. Cannons and batteries are one hell of a drop. The 2 spine crawlers seems like they were not the best investment. I'm really starting to get a bit hopeful. Probe has been spacing out all his buildings because I think he's very worried about a baneling nest. If he sees, I actually think that you win this with cannons, no?
Yeah, this is way too soon, way earlier than I thought it was going to be. He just wants to stop it getting any further forward, which makes some sense, right? If you've got to fall back a bit for the shield batteries, that does affect how much these Immortals can fight, but well, that was an expensive trade though, because he lost a lot of lings just to take that cancel down.
Yep, 1 got cancelled, 1 battery did get killed, to be fair, so at least Probe lost 100 minerals as well, and obviously Probe losing minerals is a bit worse, but since Rogue is not mining gas, and this Observer is just awesome, by the way, because that's really giving Probe all the information he needs to make the correct decisions. If I was Probe, I would stop spacing out my buildings and actually like make a little bit of a wall, right? Make a Sim City, because you want to space them out against Banes, but against just Zerglings, you actually want the buildings to protect each other. And yes, that is a lot of queens, but I don't really see these Immortals ever going down with this many batteries, this many cannons. More drones on the way is nice and all, but where is Rogue going to take this? Okay, he is building Expand, by the way, on the bottom right side.
Yeah.
Wow, though.
I mean, I like the Expand bottom right side. The idea of that is eventually, if you need to get away, if you can get down there, then you're forcing the Immortals to always be away from batteries and cannons and stuff, right? So it becomes a lot better for you. So you have to give up the natural, but generally you do this with like a Nidus, so that you can obviously Nidus down there reliably.
But he hasn't been mining gas for a long time, and I gotta say, I find this weird. I think a lot of pro Zergs are looking at this point, is like, this doesn't make any sense. If you have 33 drones against the 1 base Protoss, why are you not mining gas to give yourself extra options? Like, these 3 Immortals are just going to town right now, and yes, we've got a lot of Zerglings, but I still believe that's way too many cannons and batteries for Zerglings to ever engage.
Yeah, that's an absolute field, a forest of cannons as the drones are going to pull, but he gets the wall off. A few drones do get out. They'll head down the bottom right-hand side. So there's the evacuation we were talking about. Good play from Probe, sorry. Better play from Rogue maybe to still get out of there somehow.
I'm actually a bit worried now right now for the main base of Probe. Probe needs to wipe in something immediately. He's going to recall 1 Immortal then, I guess. Yes, but he needs to start rewalling. I guess, I mean, at least that cannon is gonna survive for quite some time, but I wouldn't have minded just 1 battery rather than all those extra gateways that are very expensive. Oh, well, the Immortals on the other side of the map actually got in a bit of a dangerous position. This game is just wild and I'm loving it.
Yeah, there's so many queens here. They're just going to continue to fight and take attention and buy time for that bottom right base to keep on mining. Remember, Rogue still has the main base mining as well during this. You mentioned before, I'd love to see him start mining some gas.
Yeah, without gas, I just don't think he's ever going to win. Like, yes, he's gonna have non-stop lings and queens on the way, but eventually, like, that's just not good enough, right? Like, I think Probe will just keep building cannons and batteries forward. Now, obviously, Probe does know about the hidden base. It's important he doesn't make any mistakes here, because Immortals are very expensive with a 1-base economy. His War Prism took some real damage there, Waddy, and that is a big deal.
Yeah, I'd rather him go up and like elevate it to like where the Overlord is right now, rather than him like going up the ramp, because going up the ramp he's just so far away from batteries. With that many queens, the War Prism dies so quickly, so you really cannot make a mistake there. So yeah, I like this position a lot more. Let's see what he can do with it. The queens are on the War Prism, actually out DPS in the battery that's in range at the moment. He's getting damage on the Prism, Roddy. He gets an Immortal. That's big, but he is going to start losing a queen or 2.
Yep, gets an Immortal finally, but 1 or 2 queens did go down, and a lot of Zerglings went down as well. And don't forget, a lot of queen energy was used there as well. Not a queen does bite the dust. There is still no gas income for Rogue, which means he truly has to start getting some big victories soon. And I don't think he's gonna get them, buddy. I'm really starting to become a believer here for Probe. Even if it's 2 base against 1, even if he's down 14 workers, I just feel there's so much micro potential in these Immortals. If Probe doesn't mess up, I think he's going to win this game.
Yeah, but all Probe has to do is keep on microing. The only thing I'm slightly concerned about is getting rid of the bottom right, because he has to do that without batteries, right?
Yeah,
that's a little bit tougher, but then there's not that much down over there defensively from Rogue. These queens again trying to buy as much time as possible, but that main base hatchery goes down. That means that all of these drones are just kind of dead weight right now. This is where you should have just had a Nidus. You can get all of this out of here and go to the bottom right, and then I'm a lot more hopeful for Rogue still.
Yep, I think the Immortals can just stand here right now and fight. Don't lose the Prism, of course. The Immortals are going to be able to clean this up. He's taking a little bit of real damage on one of these Immortals. Hey, don't you think that Probe should take the natural of Rogue?
Just expand?
Yeah.
Why? Well, I guess why not, right? It's like super defended. You're never going to lose anything over there. As Rogue is going to lose absolutely everything in the main base right now. These drones still got the surround on the Immortals, just trying to help, just trying to do anything they can. Even a bit of real damage might help in the end, but that's obviously big losses. And you can see now Rogue's economy, only 25 drones to 22 probes. The only thing is, you're right, you do need a base, and there's the natural being taken. You need a basis probe because you are mining out your main.
Yep, that is going to become problematic, and I love that he's taking this one. You don't want to take the main base of Rogue, because Rogue has been mining of that one a bit longer. There aren't that many resources left there, and this is where things get really interesting. Wadi, it's at this point 29 Zerglings and 6 Queens. If all of that is in one place, sure, the Immortals are in trouble, but will they always be in one place? Finally, by the way, there is gas mining, so we do see a lair on the way. This is where we can't really make any mistakes. I do believe that a couple of the barriers... No, actually, all the barriers are up right now. Probe's going to be really careful, but he does have a recall. Let's not forget about that.
It's just so many Immortals at this stage. The Lings are going to come in from the top side of this. The Queens are on the bottom, and obviously there's only so much you can do in terms of dancing here as the Immortals trying to fight. The Prism super low, Roddy. The Prism can't really micro anything anymore. That one Queen goes to the top and gets it. The Immortals are stranded, and the Immortals will fall. Oh, and that's going to be game. Rogue is going to take it as Probe just got a little bit too